Hello. Congratulations on receiving an Arts, Cultural, and Destination Marketing Support Grant. We're going to walk you through some important information on which expenses are eligible and ineligible, and also tell you how you can document those in your final grant report, which will be available to you in the online system in early December. First, let's talk about what makes an expense eligible. For expenses to be eligible, first they must occur between March 1st, 2020 and December 30th, 2020. Note it's December 30th, not December 31st. So don't wait until the literal end of the year to incur an expense or to expend your grant funds. No expenses outside that period are eligible. Second, for expenses to be eligible, they must not be covered by any other CARES Act support. That means you cannot use different sources of funding to pay for the same expenses. Be very careful in how you allocate funding to make sure you aren't double dipping. After all, double dipping is great for ice cream, but not for grants. Now let's talk about some of the major categories of eligible expenses, and I'll share a few examples of what documentation you'll need to provide. Salaries. This is what you paid or will pay to full or part-time staff during the covered period. This is for employees that were on payroll on March 1, not new hires after that date. Ways to document those expenses could be a payroll history or summary report from QuickBooks, your IRS Form 941 quarterly federal tax return, or even pay stubs. You'll upload that information in PDF format in your final grant report. Contract personnel. This is what you paid or will pay for contract workers. This could be contractors or contract services necessary because of COVID, like specialized cleaning, or reimbursement for services that were canceled because of COVID but required a termination fee. For example, you contracted with a band to play at your festival. You paid the band a deposit, but the festival had to be canceled due to COVID, and you didn't get the deposit back. That expense is eligible. Ways to document expenses such as these could be a payment receipt, a copy of the contract that indicates the non-refundable deposit, or an invoice, such as hiring a contractor to do additional cleaning services in your facility. Remember, you have to document every expense you are claiming. Facilities. This is what you paid in rent and utilities, such as gas, water, internet service, mortgage payments, insurance, security services for your facility, or personal protective equipment for your staff or visitors. If you own your facility or you otherwise pay property taxes, note that property taxes are not an eligible expense for this program. Ways to document eligible expenses under facilities could be a copy of your lease, copies of utility bills, your internet service, or mortgage payment schedule. Or for PPE, a dated invoice from a supplier or a receipt from a store with the date, name of item, and price clearly marked. Canceled event production costs. This is what you paid in venue fees, technical support, or equipment rental for your event, festival, arts activity that was canceled due to COVID. Ways to document those could be a copy of a contract, an invoice, and so on. Again, you have to document every expense and upload it into our online system as part of your final grant report. Here's another category, transitioning services to alternative means or methods. This is what you pay to move your event, activity, or organizational programming online. Examples of this could be a new Zoom account, a streaming platform, spray paint to create social distance circles on the grounds for your festival, a new time ticketing service, and so on. Ways to document these could be copies of invoices, contracts, or receipts. Again, with receipts and invoices, make sure you circle and write out what the purchase item was so it's clear, especially when ineligible expenses might be on the same receipt. Make sure the date of the invoice or the receipt is within the covered period, which is when? March 1 through December 30th, 2020. Marketing. Now this is a tricky one, so be sure you're not multitasking right now. To be eligible, marketing expenses must be what you spent to advertise or market the resumption of activities or the safe reopening of your event or attraction due to the public health emergency. The primary purpose of the marketing must be focused on COVID-safe reopening and not on your awesome holiday festival, with just a few words about hand sanitizer stations. Again, ways to document these expenses could be copies of invoices or receipts, and we'll also want to see a copy of those marketing materials that you created, uploaded as part of your final grant report reporting. So here are a few ineligible expenses. Marketing expenses that are not related to the safe reopening of your event, venue, or organization. To be clear, marketing expenses and costs for events that were canceled because of COVID are not eligible. Also ineligible, costs outside the covered period of when? That's right, March 1 through December 30th, 2020. New programs and services, salaries for part-time or full-time staff who were hired after March 1, promotional items and concessions, property taxes, performance or delivery of a good or service that was received prior to or after the covered period, which is when? That's right, March 1 through December 30th, 2020. There are other eligible expense categories and ineligible ones listed, which are located on the follow-up form, so read them over carefully. Some final tips I'd like to leave you with. Remember that every expense you claim has to be supported by documentation, and documentation must include dates to confirm that the expense is during the eligible period. If possible, we highly recommend putting your expenses into as few categories as possible to make it easier on you. You can even put all your expenses in one category, assuming they're all eligible. If you are providing a sales receipt as documentation or an invoice, make sure it's clearly marked on the receipt what it was for and that it was during the date of the eligibility period. And start gathering that supporting documentation now. You don't want to be scrambling around at final report deadline time for that missing invoice or receipt. If you have questions about what's eligible and what isn't, or how to document it, first consult the program webpage and go to the FAQ page. We'll be updating it as we receive questions. If you can't find your answer there, contact our general email box at grants@iddc.in.gov. And finally, all of you are continuing to move our communities and the creative activities happening with them forward. You're keeping us connected and enhancing quality of life when we need it most. A huge thank you from the Indiana Arts Commission and the Indiana Destination Development Corporation for what you're doing for all of us.